Let's set some mobs on fire and let's take a look at events. Alright, we find ourselves back in IntelliJ once more, and in this tutorial we're going to be looking at events. Now overall, events are a very versatile tool, so to speak, in your toolkit. However, they are, I would say, sort of medium level to understand and very hard to master, because sometimes first of all, there are a lot of events, so that's number one. And number two, they can be used in very particular circumstances, but we're just going to see. So in our tutorial mod package, right-click new package called events. And then inside of there, we're going to create a new Java class called ModEvents. Now, this is going to be very interesting because actually above the class, we're going to write add mod dot, and then it doesn't have anything because we have to import the mod here, right? Import mod class. There you go. And then we can do dot event bus subscriber, as you can see. And then inside of the parentheses, mod ID, and it will auto-complete it to an equals. And then we're going to just write tutorial mod.modID. So now no more errors should be present. And now this is, marked as an event bus subscriber. What does that mean? Well, it means that every method we put in here, which has an add subscribe event above it, is going to get, well, basically called when something happens. So let's just put this in. So we're going to have a public static, very important, void. And we're going to call this the set entity on fire when hit with, let's say, nether brick. Something like this. Okay. So first of all, that's an insane name. Yeah, but that no worries at all. I mean, it definitely describes what it does, right? So that's pretty good. We're going to use the living damage event, right? And this is called event. And you can see that now we have this event as a parameter. So this basically signifies, hey, this method should be called when this event is fired somewhere in the code. We don't know where it's fired, and we actually don't really care. We only know this event is fired. This method then gets called, as long as we add the add subscribe event above the method. That's also very important. So those are sort of the few things that you need to keep in mind. The add event bus subscriber above here, the add subscribe event, and then those events are called. And now we can go into the event, so middle mouse button clicking on it, and you can see that usually the events have a very good Java doc description above it. That's actually very important as well. So you should be able to find out, okay, what is all of that? It's actually pretty good. There is also the living event. So this extends from the living event. We're going to middle mouse button click on this. And then there's the entity event. And then finally, we have reached the end of the hierarchy tree with the event. I click on this and then press Control H. And now I can see all events that Forge basically adds. And there's a lot of them. And now I'm also going to expand everything. And now there's even more because, of course, there's a lot of events here. And once again, number one, the most important thing is you don't have to know all of them. That's ridiculous, actually. You just have to sometimes think about, okay, maybe there's an event for this. And the great thing is that when you're in this hierarchy view, you can even search. So for example, someone said, I want to kind of render something. It's like, okay, render. Let's go, right? We have render world last event. We have render item in item frame event. Craziness. Render block overlay event. We have something here, entity renderers. We can add layers. We can register layers. Interesting. Okay. We have render tooltip. So what happens when you render a tooltip? There's an event, and you can sort of hijack that and do something with it. Render game overlay event. So this would be something that is used to overlay something on the screen, basically. As you can see, there is a lot of things in here. Render player event. Like, there's insane amount of stuff in here. We can also say, wait, maybe we want to register something. Sure, register a commands event. Oh, interesting. Okay, we can sort of save that in the back of our mind. There's even capabilities event, so custom capabilities. We have shaders. So as you can see, insane amount of events. Do you need to know all of them? Absolutely not. Just you need to know that, okay, there are, events there. Maybe I can take a look at them, and maybe there's something in here which works. So there's, of course, also things like the, some right-clicking events or something like that, right? Right-click block, right-click item. Those can be used to great effect. If you have custom item classes or custom block classes, then you, of course, don't need that. If you want to sort of add a certain functionality to a vanilla item or a vanilla block, then those could be used very well. So that's something to also keep in mind. So we're going to see one example here, and that is when I hit an entity with a nether brick, the entity is going to be set on fire, and the nether brick, so the stack, is going to be reduced by 1. So how does that look? Well, first of all, we need to make sure that we are on the server. So once again, the exclamation mark, and then we're going to say event.getEntity.level.is client side. And then with the exclamation mark, we're of course negating this, meaning that this only happens when we are on the server. Then we're going to see whether or not the source, so where the damage came from, is a player. So we're going to say event.getEntity, actually not, we're going to say getSource, and then we're going to say getDirectEntity. So this is the direct entity that is responsible for the damage, because there's also, as you can see, there's also the getEntity. So the getEntity, if we were to fire an arrow, the arrow would actually be returned here, but the direct entity, of course, is the player that's responsible for the damage. And then we'll say instance of player, this one right here, there you go. And if that is the case, then we can, without a doubt, just cast the direct entity to a player here. So we can say event.getSource.getDirectEntity, and then we can simply, does this already work? No, we can say .cast though, there you go. And then usually it already auto-completes it to the player, that's nice. And now we can say, okay, that if the player has a certain item in the hand, how can we do this? Well, actually very easy. As long as we have access to the player variable, it's very easy. We can just say player.getMainHandItem. And then as you can see, we get the item stack that the player has in the hand. We can then say, hey, get item. So we actually get the item. And then we can say items.netherbrick, just for the sake of argument here, like I said. We're just going to use the nether brick. You could use any item really here. And then we're just going to say that the item stack is going to shrink, meaning that the stack that the player has in the main hand, so get main hand item dot shrink once again by 1, meaning that whatever stack the player has in the hand, meaning the nether bricks, is just going to be reduced by 1. Okay, and then how do we set an entity on fire? That's probably going to be really freaking hard, right? Get entity living. Okay, we're now having the entity. How can we set it on fire? Set fire 6 seconds on fire. That's that. Literally one call here. So it's not that complicated. That's of course not always going to be the case. You know, sometimes the things where you might say, well, those are probably going to be really complicated, actually fairly straightforward with one method call. Others might be not so much. But overall, that is pretty much the method that we really need here. And that's also all that we need for this to work. Now, overall, the events in and of themselves, you know, can sometimes be a little bit confusing, a little bit complicated. Like I said, it's all about knowing when to actually use them, right? You shouldn't just be like, okay, I definitely want to use an event right now. Oh my God, we have to use it. And also something to keep in mind, we actually have seen events before in our data folder, data generators. Look at this. Look at this one. We have actually used the gather data event already here. Now, what is very important or interesting here is that you can see this has a bus equals to the mod bus here. What does that mean? Well, in general, if I just go into here, you can see that there's the bus.forge and there's also the mod bus. Now, just to give the broadest overview possible, there are some events which are fired by forge and some events which are fired by mod. That's pretty much all that you need to know for the time being. There are some differences, usually, and we should be able to see this. Actually, yes, iMod bus event. So usually there should be some indication in the events class on which bus this is fired from. So that might happen to you, and I actually think that we will see an example of this in a future tutorial as well. But for the time being, I think this is enough said. Let's actually see if the event here works. Alright, we finished this in Minecraft, and as you can see, I've already got the nether bricks in my hand, and let's just see, let's just hit the sheep, and there he goes. So, first of all, a nether brick has been subtracted, and also the sheep has just, well, been set on fire, and I can basically hit it as, you know, until it basically just dies, and then I actually get, let's go, cooked mutton, there you go. So, that's actually how easy it is. This is, of course, once again, just one example of how this might work, and yeah, that's pretty much the idea here. Right here at the end, I can just say the best thing is to really just try out a bunch of stuff, take a look at some events, try to see if you can maybe, you know, change a bit around. And overall, that would be it for this tutorial right here. I hope you found this useful and you learned something new. If you did, I would very much appreciate a like. And don't forget to subscribe for more tutorials just like this one. So, yeah.